Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Good morning to you all. We start with our discussion on sanitary and phytosanitary measures. So, the members, that is the member states of the WTO, are encouraged to adhere to international standards where they exist. That means the standards that are set by the international bodies. Although higher standards can be enforced if there is a scientific justification provided in accordance with internationally accepted risk assessment techniques. That means the international standards that are set by international institutions or any such bodies, that will be uniform for the other member states. Therefore, it is encouraged that the member states, they should follow the uniform pattern or the uniform set of standards. But it can be situations where the member states, they are willing to go for the higher standards than those set by the international bodies. So of course they are given permission, or they are allowed to set their own standards higher than that of the international standards, but with scientific justification that why they are applying those higher standards, or what is the basis for which they are willing to apply the higher standards. But mainly that should be to cover the risk. It can't be that they want more quality based products or something that is more fancy, but mainly the idea is, or the objective is, that they have to cover the risk thing. Next is, members should seek to accept sanitary and phytosanitary measures of other countries as equivalent, even if different, where they provide the same level of protection as their own regulations. So the member states, they can apply their own process for let's say for maintaining sanitary measures or phytosanitary measures, although that can be different than that of the another country. Like for example, if they have to disinfect something, then country A can apply its own method to disinfect in comparison to that of country B. But finally the end result is that both the countries, they are meeting the objectives of disinfecting any particular goods that is meant for export. So despite the fact that the process they have adopted is of different nature, but if the final outcome brings the same result, then that should be accepted in the equivalent terms as it is done by any particular country. So as equivalent, even if different, where they provide the same level of protection as their own regulations. Control, inspection and approval procedures should be undertaken in no less favorable manner for imported products than for the like domestic products. So in case there is a investigation, or there are some lab based inquiries, then the same kind of process or the procedure, that should be adopted like it is followed in case of the goods that belong to the domestic market. The sanitary and phytosanitary agreements confirm the right of the WTO member countries to apply measures necessary to protect human, animal and plant life and health. Now there is a different in legal sense, or the legal interpretation, that sanitary and phytosanitary measure, they provide, or they actually accept some kind of right that exists between the member states. Like that should not be, if any measure is adopted by a member state for complying with the sanitary and phytosanitary measure, or for investigating or checking sanitary and phytosanitary standards, then that should not be considered as protectionist measure, because it is within the ambit of their right that they can do so for protecting the health of the human, animal and plant life within their territory. The right was included in the original 1947 General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade as general exclusion from the other provisions of the agreement, provided that such measures are not applied in a manner which would constitute a means of arbitrary or unjustifiable discrimination between countries where the same conditions prevail, or a disguised restriction on international trade. So it's not something totally new for the WTO, although the WTO has taken a very wide concept of sanitary and phytosanitary measure in comparison to the earlier trade system that was working, that is the GATT. So in GATT also there were some provisions covering these measures, but that was not very elaborative. And however, they had put the condition, or it still works with the condition, that the member states, those who are applying sanitary and phytosanitary measures, they should not use it in an unjustifiable manner, neither it should tend to create discrimination between the domestic products and the foreign products, because if an agenda is set that the foreign products, the ingredients that are used, they are not healthy, or they are not, let's say, compatible with the health conditions of particular country, therefore that can lead to the decrease in the sale of that product, but that is not acceptable under sanitary and phytosanitary measure rules. So that will lead to the discrimination between the goods belonging to different countries, unjustifiable discrimination between countries where the same conditions prevail, or a disguised restriction on international trade. So what has to be taken very seriously, that if there are similar conditions prevailing in the exporting country and the importing country cannot state different standards, or neither can it state that such products that are brought from different country, after they have fulfilled the criteria of sanitary and phytosanitary measures, still there is the possibility that they may not be good for health, or there can be health risk associated with it. So that kind of mindset should not be there, or that kind of attitude should not be adopted by the member states. Despite this general condition for the application of national measures to protect human, animal and plant life and health, it had become apparent by the time the Punta del Este Declaration was initiated that national sanitary and phytosanitary measures had become, whether by design or accident, effective trade barriers. Now, one thing one need to understand, when I said the mindset should not be there, but that mindset was something already existing. So when the GATT came into existence, and after GATT the negotiations were going on for the WTO, at that time these issues were discussed widely, that member states, it's in their mindset to adopt protectionist measure, or they are more, do have the tendency to favor their domestic products. So how that can be checked? That can be sometime incidental also, but the legal measures that are meant to make things more transparent, or to put check on that kind of restrictive or protectionist practices, is always time taking. We cannot expect the change to happen overnight. So this was also declared during the time, these like challenges, they were also accepted during the time of Punta del Este Declaration. It had become apparent by the time the Punta del Este Declaration was initiated that national sanitary and phytosanitary measures. Now the national sanitary and phytosanitary measures means what are the standards that are set by an individual nation. So they became more prominent rather than the international standard. So that was in a way creating some kind of hindrance to the free movement of goods across the countries, because I would like to here again state that member states, they have different, it's not simply that they have different economic conditions, but they do have also different geographical conditions and other like natural factors that play the role in the production of the goods. They cannot be compared in many circumstances. So simply by applying the provisions of sanitary and phytosanitary measures and drawing the distinction between two kind of products, and then putting restrictions on the products that are from a very different kind of environment, simply by stating that this could be health hazardous or they are not compatible with our health condition, will lead to the protectionist measures. As a result, the sanitary and phytosanitary agreement came into being and set new rules in an area previously not widely covered in the GATT discipline. So that is where we find the advantages by creating this the agreement being included in the WTO framework, which was not existing earlier. So after the sanitary and phytosanitary measure agreement has been included in the WTO system, not earlier in the GATT system, it has made things more transparent and formed a kind of a parameter, or let's say formed kind of the margins where we can clearly decide that what should be accepted in terms of the regulations of sanitary and phytosanitary measures and what cannot be accepted in terms of these regulations. So as a result, sanitary and phytosanitary agreement came into being and set new rules in an area previously not widely covered in the GATT disciplines. The purpose of the sanitary and phytosanitary agreement is to ensure that measures established by governments to protect human, animal and plant life and health are consistent with the obligations prohibiting arbitrary or unjustifiable discrimination on trade between countries. So, what should be the very clear aspect that while applying sanitary and phytosanitary measure, and even let's say before applying, let's come to the creation of this agreement, sanitary and phytosanitary agreement. It was very much realized that within this agreement the provisions should be made very clear that there is no chance to create arbitrary or unjustifiable discrimination between the products belonging to different countries. And secondly, it should be applied with the genuine concern of the nations that that these measures are meant for health, protecting the health of human, plant and animals. Such measures shall not be applied in a manner that would constitute a disguised restriction on international trade. Basically, the disguised restriction is something which is done by circumventing the law, or by, let's say, bypassing the law and not making those things coming in the front. So, like if the protectionist measures are applied through sanitary and phytosanitary measure, that will be disguising the rules or the mainframe principles that are adopted by the WTO. So, such measures shall not be applied in a manner that would constitute a disguised restriction on international trade. It requires with regard to food safety measures, WTO members base their national measures on international standards, guidelines and other recommendations adopted by Codex Alimentarius Commission for Animal Life and Health. Measures should be based on those standards adopted and recommended by International Office of Epizootics, and for plant life and health, those standards and recommendations of International Plant Protection Convention. Now, these three are the private bodies that set the standards, and it is expected that the standards set by these three bodies, that can be the mark, or that can be the guidelines, or that can set like the benchmark based on which the member states can adopt their own standard for putting restrictions on the goods that are coming from abroad on the basis of sanitary and phytosanitary measures. Now, let's say give a look to what it means, or what these bodies are related to. Codex Alimentarius Commission. The practice of international food trade has existed for thousands of years, but until not long ago, food was produced, sold and consumed locally. So, earlier what was the situation? We never faced the trading situation of this nature, that where the goods, mainly the food stuff, that is transshipped across different continents even. And then we are also expecting the high quality, that it should not be infected, and it should comply with the health guidelines or the health regulations. So, that is like kind of also a challenge, but that challenge is based on some scientific evidences, and it's not impossible to meet those challenges. Over the last century, the amount of food traded has grown exponentially. The Codex Alimentarius International Food Standards Guidelines and Codes of Practice contribute to the safety, quality and fairness of this international food trade. So, this is the main task, or let's say main expectation from Codex Alimentarius, that it sets the international food standards, set the guidelines and codes of practice that will be available to the parties related to this organization, and mainly the task is to maintain safety, quality and fairness of the international food trade. Consumers can trust the safety and quality of the food products they buy, and importers can trust that the food they ordered will be in accordance with their specifications. So, once there is a compliance like this Codex Alimentarius compliance, that means those who are purchasing the food, imported food, they can rely that it's compatible with the health conditions or the health guidelines or the health related norms. Public concern about food safety issues often places Codex at the center of global debates. Veterinary drugs, pesticides, food additives and contaminants are some of the issues discussed in Codex meeting. Now, what are the main area that Codex deals with? Definitely the food safety. But within the food safety, there is a wide range of areas that are, or wide range of subjects that are taken into consideration. Example, they are the veterinary drugs, because it's not simply the vegetarian food that is the matter of concern here, but also the meat products. So that will depend upon the kind of drugs that are used for the animal meat, or when these animals they were disinfected by some medicine, so what kind of drugs were used. Veterinary drugs, pesticides that are used during farming or during the time of their harvest. Food additives like for taste that can be used for popularizing the foods, sometimes the coloring is done, so that kind of additives. And contaminants are some of the issues discussed in Codex meetings. Codex standards are based on sound science provided by independent international risk assessment bodies or ad hoc consultants organized by Food Agriculture Organization and World Health Organization. So there are different organizations that are related to or they give the inputs to this codex, and mainly the inputs are related to the risk assessment, that what kind of risk factors are involved if these kind of pesticides are used, or let's say these kind of preservatives or these kind of additives, taste additives are used. So what can be the side effect and what is the limit, like to the extent if it's used in a very minor quantity, then there will be no harmful effect to the human body or to the animals or the plants. So that kind of limit is determined by this codex or the other related associations that are working with that with this body. Scope of Codex Alimentarius. The Codex Alimentarius includes standards for all the principal foods, whether processed, semi-processed or raw, for distribution to the consumer. So these standards are available not simply to completely processed food, but those standards can be set, or the this Codex Alimentarius, they have the standards for various categories of foods or the foods in different state. They can that's when I say the food in different state, that can be the processed food, semi-processed food or the raw food. So in all these categories they define the standards, health standards for distribution to the consumers. Materials for further processing into food should be included to the extent necessary to achieve the purpose of Codex Alimentarius as defined. So what can be further done, or materials for the further processing, like how this food can be processed, or if it is semi-processed food, that how this can be cooked, or what ingredients should be used while cooking and what ingredients should not be used while cooking. For example, let's say for preserving the semi-processed food, lot of salt or kind of any such additives has been used, or any such preservatives has been used, then maybe there can be some kind of indication that already the salt has been added and less of the salt should be used while cooking, because that gives the some kind of hint to the user or the consumer that if it's that person is not careful, then it can be risky, or it can create some adverse effect to the health. So that kind of things should be clearly mentioned, or what should be the heating temperature of this food product, or whether it can be fried, it can be heated in this oven. So all that necessary process, that cooking process that are applied after the food is opened from the packet, that should also be mentioned, and actually that is hinted by these Codex Alimentarius body. Materials for further processing into food should be included to the extent necessary to achieve the purpose of Codex Alimentarius as defined. The Codex Alimentarius includes provisions in respect of food hygiene, food additives, residues of pesticides and veterinary drugs, contaminants, labeling and presentations, methods of analysis and sampling, and import and export inspection and certification. So these are kind of all the procedural checks that are step by step given or suggested by this Codex Alimentarius, and in all these step by step kind of thing that is done, or all the step by step measures that are being taken, all the set standards are met, that while using this packaging the product, what standards should be met, or in case they are using any veterinary drug, then to what extent those veterinary drugs should be used. So that is very clear now. And finally, after they have passed the test that is set by this body, then certification should be granted that this foodstuff or foodstuff from this company meets the standard requirements. Next is International Office of Epizootics. It is the global authority on animal health. Founded in 1924 as the Office International des Epizootics, on May 2003 they adopted the common name World Organization for Animal Health, because here we are not simply dealing with the foodstuff in general that is not derived from animals, but also we are, sanitary and phytosanitary measures are equally concerned the food that is derived from animal meat or through animal sources. So therefore there has to be the standards for health standards with regard to the food from the animal sources. And since the process that is applied for acquiring the food from animals in comparison to that of the process that is applied for acquiring the food from vegetarian sources or from the plants, they both vary. So therefore different set of standards, different set of research methodologies have to be applied to know what can be the causes of infection in the categories of meat and meat product, and what can be the causes of infection in the case of plant and plant products. So for this the International Office of Epizootics works for the animals, health of the animals. On May 2003 they adopted the common name World Organization for Animal Health, an intergovernmental organization. They focus on transparently disseminating information on animal disease. Now one of the instance of animal disease is like there was a mad cow disease, then we are often known about this avian influenza, that is the birds they get infected with this avian flu or avian influenza, or there are several other type of these disease or the infections that these animals do carry. But if that is taken by that is consumed by the humans without getting the animals disinfected or without testing whether the such infection is over with the animals or not, that can create a wide range of problem for the human beings, or it can be like another epidemic. So one has to be very careful with these animal products. And intergovernmental organization, they focus on transparently disseminating information. So there has to be information, firstly the correct source of information, then after obtaining the information it should be widely circulated with a knowledge basis. It should not be circulated simply to affect the market or to decrease the sale of the product, but based on the scientific evidences that if this product is consumed, then what can be the effects, or what the labs have suggested based on the data collected from the labs. Improving animal health globally and thus build a safer, healthier and more sustainable world. So finally, in nutshell, kind of responsibility of this International Office of Epizootics to maintain some kind of health condition of the animals, and also in many countries they have adopted the norms, or they are going with the norms that prior to these animals taken to the butcher shop, or let's say taken to the shop for meat, for getting the meat, it must be checked that whether they have been kept in a right order or not, or they were simply like thrown into the places, or they were simply kept in the places under very let's say very pathetic conditions or unclean conditions, unhygienic conditions, because at the end that will be affecting the humans also. So that kind of practices has been started in many countries. And then also what is the process that is being used by the butchers or by the persons who are dealing with the meat product. So the laws, they are now gradually taking care of like all how the animal is born, then the animal, how to what extent the animal is taken care of when it's like kept in the places or in their living places, whether right and adequate measures have been taken when they are living in their places. So after that, when they are taken to the butcher shops, so or abattoir shops, whether what is the condition, hygiene condition of those shops and the places. So all that requires the law to play a very effective role. And now with the standards being set by these international organizations, supporting international trade, veterinary services centers, providing international leadership, collaborating with the World Organization for Animal Health, veterinary public health and control of zoonosis in developing countries. So there are some other associations that are working widely to support the animal health and to know the preconditions before the animal is taken to the shop. International Plant Protection Convention (IPPC) boasts a network of international partners from all over the world. These includes 10 regional plant protection organizations. So one is firstly International Plant Protection Convention, and after this, like it's at the sub level or under this International Plant Protection Convention, there are regional plant protection organizations working to see how far the care is being taken of about the plants that the humans are consuming, working to secure plant health and environment protection in their regions. The International Plant Protection Convention is a multilateral treaty administered by the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization that aims to prevent and control the introduction and spread of pests of plants. Now, it's not that the plants do not get affected, they also get affected, and since the human beings, they very much depend upon the plant and the plant products. So it is very often that they get affected through the infection of the plant or whatever, let's say, the plant carries that enters the human body. So in that sense, if there is some infection or the plant is diseased, so that may create a great health problem to the human beings after consumption. So the International Plant Protection Convention is a multilateral treaty administered by the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization that aims to prevent and control the introduction and spread of pests of plants. So if the plant is infected by the pests, so that should not be consumed by the humans, or if there are pests that may not be harmful for the humans, or but still that should be disinfected. That condition must be complied with. The scope of the convention includes not only the protection of cultivated plants but also extends to encompass natural flora and plant products. So it's not simply the crops that are used for the harvest or for human consumption, but this association, it takes care of the natural flora that exist in the nature or in the ecosystem, and mainly because if the ecosystem gets infected, then it will infect all kind of life. So one has to be cautious enough when these plants or different sources are taken from the ecosystem, then what methods can be adopted for maintaining their health conditions or knowing the fact that they are compatible with the human health conditions. The primary focus of IPPC is to regulate the movement and international trade of plants and plant products that may act as a pathway or vector for introducing plant pests, including invasive weed species. So it's not simply confined to the infection of the plant, but when the wide variety of plants, or let's say the variety of plants, they are exported to other countries. So it may be that they also carry some weeds. Now, what are the weeds? They are, or the parasite plants, we can say it like that. So if along with the crops, if we get the parasite plants, so that will spoil the fertility of that region, or it may take away the minerals and the nutrients from that region, or it may take the minerals and nutrients from the crops that has been shown. So the science has taken a very big lead in this regard, knowing that what kind of plants are suitable for human consumption, what kind of plants they are of parasitical nature, and that may create problem to the humans, and not simply to the human but to the other plant varieties. So in that respect, proper standards can be set that what kind of plants that should be permitted to be exported, and how they can be disinfected, or how the de-weeding can be done, or the weeds that can be removed or they can be neutralized. All the modern technologies are quite capable with resolving these problems. So but anything before adopting those approaches to resolve the problems, the one should be clear with the data available that the plants that are coming from the different countries, what are their varieties, and also what kind of let's say the weeds they are carrying, or what kind of infections they are carrying. The introduction of invasive pests and diseases can greatly endanger global food production and security. So the pests or the parasites that we are talking about, like locusts is one such example, and what kind of pesticides are used to restrict their growth. So that is very important, because many of those parasites, they are so dangerous that they can finish the entire field in minutes. So, or they can create like other problems in the field, in the crops. So that, and further that can lead to the food problem, or that can be very harmful for the farmers. So these things are taken care of by these associations, and moreover it's the responsibility of the states that are trading in these products to the other countries. The introduction of invasive pests and disease can greatly endanger global food production and security, as well as long-term agriculture sustainability. Movement of pests also negatively impacts renewable resources and natural ecosystems. The IPPC specifies the function of RPPOs. RPPOs are the regional organizations coordinating national plant protection organizations and participating in activities to promote and achieve the objectives of IPPC. So because IPPC cannot single-handedly work everywhere, it has to take off the regional aspects through other agencies, or it has to delegate its tasks to the regional agencies, because moreover, if we take the entire, let's say, world, so different places have different kind of challenges with regard to maintaining sustainability, whether it's related to the agriculture products, or it is related to other form of plant varieties consumed by the humans, or even if not consumed by the humans, but where they are the habitat of other living creatures, or the other living creatures are dependent upon them. So since there are different ecosystems working, different plant varieties working depending upon different geographical conditions and climatic and weather conditions, therefore these regional organizations, these regional plant protection organizations, they can gather or collect a good amount of data for that region, and finally give suggestions to this international plant protection bodies. And it can then work on this. The international plant protection bodies, they can, or this International Plant Protection Commission, they can give their inputs, or they can suggest the conclusions. But prior to that, they must be well aware about the situations that are in different part of the world, and that is where the RPPOs play the role, or let's say the National Plant Protection Organizations, they play the role. Coordinating, the IPPC specifies the function of RPPOs as coordinating national plant protection organizations and participating in activities to promote and achieve the objectives of IPPC. Cooperating with other regions to promote harmonized sanitary measures. Now, what is the harmonized sanitary measures? Basically, that is the common measures. So it's not that country A says that I have this standard for sanitary measures, and country B says that my standards are this, and they both differ from each other. So that will definitely create another kind of crisis in the long run. But so why to go for that when the member states, they have signed the WTO and they have accepted most favored nation clause, they have accepted the concept of free trade. So they must harmonize this, the standards also, the international standards for the quality of the food, or for the quality of the food, and for other varieties that may affect not simply the human life, but the life of plant and other living creatures. Cooperating with other regions to promote harmonized phytosanitary measures, gathering and disseminating information, in particular in relation to IPPC, and cooperating with CPM and IPPC Secretariat in developing and implementing international standards for phytosanitary measures. So the data that will be collected, or the inputs that will be given by this regional plant protection organization, that will enable this international bodies to set the standards, to create the standard for implementation among the member states. Each RPPO has its own action plan and program. However, each year the IPPC Secretariat organizes a technical consultation where all RPPOs gather to discuss common challenges, share information, and look for synergies. So it is not that these regional organizations, they are working independently. There is a pyramidal order where these regional organizations, they join together, they share their information, they share their data, and they try to find out the technicalities that are at issue. So it is like they not simply they share the technical issues or the technicalities of the issue, but then they also should have their own roadmap, that if this is their problem, then how they are going to resolve it, or if they find this kind of upcoming issue, then what are their suggestions to solve it. So they must be ready with their action plan also. So each RPPOs, now this shows that there is some extent of autonomy being given to them, although it can be that whatever the plans they suggest, they may not be the most viable option. Those viable options can be explored through further discussions among these groups, but at least they are given the autonomy to give their suggestions or to prepare their own roadmap. Each RPPO has its own action plan and program. However, each year the IPPC Secretariat organizes a technical consultation where all the RPPOs gather to discuss common challenges, share information, and look for synergy. That means they expect that others will combine together, others will join together, and will help to resolve these crises. These organizations are collectively referred to as three sisters. The agreement also allows for countries to adopt stricter measures than those adopted by the three sisters. So, just a while ago, we are discussing that there are three different pillars. The one for the life of the human beings, protection, or noticing that how the life of the human beings will be affected by the import or export of these products. Then one for the plant and the other for the animal. So in that respect, they are termed as the three pillars, and working all the three pillars working on their own with the scientific basis or with the scientific knowledge. So now that will support the sanitary and phytosanitary measure agreement in nutshell. So these organizations are collectively referred to as three sisters. The agreement also allows for countries to adopt stricter measures than those adopted by these three sisters. So whatever standards are suggested by these organizations or these bodies for maintaining the standards with regard to the animal products, for maintaining the standards with regard to the plant or the plants or the plant products, or with regard to the other eatables. So whether the question arises whether any nation can or whether any member state can maintain a standard higher than these suggested, yes, so it's possible, but that possibility is still based on one prior condition, that the nation, such member states adopting a higher standard, must give some scientific evidence that why it is going for a higher standard, not the international standard that is adopted or that is suggested to be applied generally. These organizations are collectively referred to as three sisters. The agreement also allows for countries to adopt stricter measures than those adopted by three sisters if there is a scientific justification for doing so, or if the level of protection afforded by the recognized standard setting organizations is inconsistent with the level of protection generally applied and deemed appropriate by the country concerned. So if they expect that this level is lower, so why do we go for that lower? Or it can be another situation that prior to the standard being set by these bodies, the country was maintaining a standard higher than that suggested. So why it should lower its standard of protection? So, and making people vulnerable to these infections. So and in that respect, the country which or any member state that was maintaining the set of rules or standards for higher, let's say, or of higher quality, can maintain that standard. In order to have better understanding of what the agreement requires and the importance of the provisions of the agreement, a review will be made article by article. article, like we will take the cursory glance to the key articles that discusses the rules, main rules of sanitary and phytosanitary measure. Firstly, Article 1 indicates that this agreement applies to all sanitary and phytosanitary measures which affect international trade. Basically, the concept of sanitary and phytosanitary measures is with regard to the cross-border trade. Of course, the rules and regulation for the quality check, for the health check, or for the check of or knowing the effect of infection can be within the domestic market also. But when we talk about the uniform set of rules or the rules at the multilateral level, where the international standards play the role, that we mean by the trade of foodstuff or the goods of such nature that can infect the human life or plant life, or the plants or the other living creatures. So for that, the sanitary and phytosanitary measures are the key to those standards. All sanitary and phytosanitary measures which affect international trade. It informs us that definitions for terms used in the agreement are provided in Annex A, and that the definition shall apply to this agreement, and that all annexes are an integral part of this agreement. So the sanitary and phytosanitary measure has various annexures also that gives further definitions or further classifications of the various categories. The definition of sanitary and phytosanitary measure is any measure applied to protect animal or plant life or health within the territory of the member from risks related to entry, establishment, or spread of pests or disease carrying organisms or disease causing organisms. So what do we mean by sanitary and phytosanitary measure? Basically, it is any measure, any legal measure that is applied to protect animal or plant life or health within the territory of that member state from the risks that are related to either the entry of the products, entry of these products, or the establishment or the spread of the pests or diseases, disease carrying organisms or disease causing organisms. So disease carrying organisms means they are already infected from the home country or from the place of their origin, or disease causing organisms means the organisms that have the tendency to produce the diseases. So the rules, sanitary and phytosanitary measure covers the rules that are meant to put restrictions on these kind of health hazard or health risk factors. Any measure to protect human and animal life or health within the territory of the member from risks arising from food additives, contaminants, toxins, or disease causing organisms in food, beverages, or feedstuffs. So further, now that it's like a very broad definition covering in different categories for the animals, covering different categories for the human life, and then for the plant life. So any measure, that means any legal measure applied to protect human and animal life or health within the territory of the member from the risks that are arising from any food additives, that means whatever are added in the food for the flavors or for the tastes. Contaminants, what is like contaminated, or if there is some contamination in the food, that is something is mixed to make it to lower its quality, to make it impure. Toxins, that means the chemicals that are used, or disease causing organisms in foods, beverages, or feedstuffs. Any measure applied to protect human life or health within the territory of the member from disease carried by animals, plants, animal plant products, or from entry, establishment, or spread of pests. So further, what else can be included here, or what else is included in the sanitary and phytosanitary measure? They are, again, the measures here means the set of legal rules or the legal measures that are applied basically to protect human life or health within the territory of that member state from the diseases that carried by either the animals. So if there is a movement of animal in the sense that if the animals are or animal products are exported to another country, and first is animals means the living animals, if they are exported from one country to another, or it can be the animals that are dead, but they are not still processed for the food, but simply they are dead, so that can also be covered. Sometimes they are the meat that is in raw form, that is also covered. So it's a animal simply doesn't mean, or we cannot confine the definition to the living animals, but that covers the food that is derived from the animal, or the living animal, the dead animal, or the products that are made from the animal. Similarly, it is for the plants, the living plants, the dead plants, or the products that are derived from the plants. Animal plant products, or from the entry, their entry into the member states, the market of the member states, their establishment, that is like if there is a let's say warehouse, or there is a storing place, or there is a place where the raw stuff that is introduced in the system or in the country can be processed in the food stuff. So that is also included here in terms of establishment or spread of pests. Any measure applied to prevent or limit damage from the entry, establishment, or spread. So it could be that once these animal plants, animal products, or the plant products that have entered, and there are like chances that it can cause some infection, or it can cause some disease, or it can affect the life, human life, animal life, or the plant life, then what measures can be adopted after their entry. So it's not simply confined or to the stage prior to the entry, but sanitary and phytosanitary measures are applicable also when such like products that are derived from animals, plants, or even the live animals or the living plants there that have entered the member states market. Now, what are the sanitary and phytosanitary measures, which include laws and degrees, what it covers? So sanitary and phytosanitary measures include all laws, decrees, regulations, requirements, and procedures related to end product criteria. End product is like the finished product. Once the product is ready, that is what we mean by the end product. So it's like not simply the raw material, but the processed part, or finally once the stuff is ready for the market, that is covered under the definition end product. Now end product here means what criteria is to be met. Like firstly, we have noticed that in the food stuff it is mentioned the expiry date. So the best use date, that means this food should be used within 2 months of its packing, or it should not be used after 3 months of its manufacturing. So that kind of thing. Now what criteria is adopted for the end product, or there sometime it is also to be mentioned that what will be the most effective use. That means the food will start losing its the nutrient value or its caloric value after certain days. So clearly it should be mentioned. Then the method of preservation, like whether it should be stored in cold places or in refrigerators, or it should be kept away from the light. So that is the different criteria that are followed once the end product is introduced in the market. Process and production procedures. Of course, that's mentioned briefly, that what process has been used, because that can also be like the trade secret. So not the entire process is not revealed, but in general it is mentioned that how this product has been produced. Secondly, what are the ingredients used, whether animal meat is used or not, it's a purely vegetarian or not, or the fats derived from the animal sources or the plant sources. So that kind of things need to be clearly mentioned for knowing this sanitary and phytosanitary measures, or whether it is prone to bacterial infection, it is prone to fungal infection, so that the consumers, they are well aware about its uses, or if it is, once it is cooked, then for how long this can be stored, or how long this can be kept in the refrigerator. Next is the testing. So it has been tested, and what was the result from this testing, and what are the ingredients that are involved, or after testing is it found that this is not good for the heart patients, or this is not good for the patients with chronic diabetes. So this kind of issues need to be mentioned in clear terms at the level of the product. Inspection, that means allowing the agencies to inspect whenever they feel that there are certain doubts or whether the right kind of quality measures are adopted or not, or whether the proper cares are taken to prevent infection or not. So that must be it must, like within the preview of sanitary and phytosanitary measures, there is a clear, let's say, liberty to inspect the foodstuff or to the places where these foodstuffs are stored or kept. Certification and approval procedures, that how the certificates are obtained or what are the methods based on which the approval has been secured. Quarantine treatments, like sometimes the live animals are brought, living animals are brought, or sometimes the living fishes are imported. So it can be that those living animals or the living fishes, they might be infected and it is not known initially whether these are infected or not. So that they have to be quarantined, and that means they have to be isolated from the other animals or from the open places and observed, keenly observed, whether they are infected or not, or whether they require certain treatment or not. So if they are not quarantined, then and they are used for the animal meat or they are used for, let's say, other purposes, then or they are left in open, so that might create some problems to the health of the humans and plant and animal life. Quarantine treatments associated with animals and plant transport and materials required during their transport. Statistical method, that is for the data collection and also for keeping the records. Sampling procedures, that how the samples will be created, how the samples will be framed, so that is like the sample procedures. And also this sampling procedures is also the part of research methodology. When we use the data for random sampling or for other form of sampling, it's known as the sampling technique also. Methods for risk assessment, that is to know that whether there are risks or not, or what kind of risks are involved. So a preliminary investigation, or let's say the prior tests, are done to find out what kind of risk can be there. And sometime knowing that there are chances of risks, there can be some vaccination done, or the other methods to disinfect can be applied so that there can't be any let's say wide range of damage being done. Packaging and labeling, that is the process of packing the foodstuffs, and what should be clearly marked in the labels, and how the consumer will be made aware about the ingredients that are used. Harmonization. Now this is like the sanitary and phytosanitary measures, they can be made of same standards. That means nation 1 is ready to accept what the sanitary measures are belonging to the nation B. So that is what we mean by the term harmonization. That means we recognize if the certification has been done by the state A, then that is valid even in state B. So it's like there is a mutual trust. But this is also a dicey situation, because it can be the weather conditions of country A are different than that of country B. So the same level of tests or the same level of certification or approval, whether that will in true sense be valid, or whether in true sense it will be applicable in country B or not. So that remains to be relied on some objective criteria other than the harmonization also. But in general, when the weather conditions, or let's say the conditions of the two nations are of same type, that can be compared in most of the respects, like if it's the seasonal factor that contribute to the infection or contribute to the bacterial formation, and the seasonal factor are same in the two countries, then why to ask for different sanitary rules? That is what I mean to say here. But if the seasonal factors are different, that means one belonging to the northern hemisphere, and another belonging to the southern hemisphere, so that is very then it's relevant that the two different standards are required. International standards, guidelines, recommendations for food safety. The terms international standards, guidelines, and recommendations refer to those established by Codex Alimentarius commissions relating to food additives, veterinary drugs and pesticides residue, contaminants, methods of analysis and sampling, codes and guidelines of hygiene practices. For animal health, the zoonosis is the disease that gets transmitted to humans from animals. These same terms refer to the standards, guidelines, and recommendations developed under the auspices of International Office of Epizootics. For plant health, they refer to the international standards, guidelines, and recommendations developed under the auspices of Secretariat of International Plant Protection Convention. I am repeating this because we are talking here about the harmonization of the rules. So those harmonizations can be done based on the guidelines issued by these three different international bodies. So for now, I thank you for being with me and trying to understand what the sanitary and phytosanitary measures means. And for now, we continue further the discussions, and thank you very much for being with me. Thank you.
Understanding oneself, understanding others, understanding society at large, understanding the nature, these are all driven by basic human curiosity. We would all love to understand why things happen, what happens, what is the final outcome, why certain things fail. These are all exercises that we perform in various domains of knowledge. Therefore, knowledge in various domains, you would realize they are actually social artifacts. They have to be rooted into historical perspective, they have to be culturally salient, and there would be socio-political reasons behind this. Whether you talk with respect to engineering sciences, whether you talk with respect to physical sciences, biological sciences, social sciences, that is the reason why humanities and social sciences should be understood by all of us. The knowledge that is segregated, that is divided with respect to areas, specializations, all of them needs to be understood in its context. And what provides the context? It is the social reality. How do you correlate knowledge in a given domain with the cultural reality, with the social reality, with the socio-political compulsions? Okay, how do you understand the law of nature, okay, in its totality? And for doing that, you require the understanding of humanities and social sciences. Say for instance, if you are trying to understand the effect of a particular bacteria, a virus, any microbe, how it affects behavior, how it affects the organism, human being, you start looking at it from a pure biological point of view. If you are trying to look at a particular type of a wavelength, say for example, you are emphasizing on the understanding of the effect of radiation on human life, you are looking at things from a physical point of view. You are looking at the corresponding changes inside the body, you are looking at the physiological side of the understanding of the information. You are trying to understand why, despite knowing the risk that is inbuilt in the process, why still human beings engage into it. You are looking at it from a pure behavioral point of view. Why society at large admire things which has full of risk. You are trying to understand things from a pure sociological point of view. Why people use particular set of words to explain those experiences. You are trying to understand things from the linguistic point of view. So, there are a whole lot of things, and then finally you try to combine all of them to say that what are the guiding principles in life. Then you say you are looking at life, you are looking at humanity from a pure philosophical point of view. And this is what social sciences courses provide you. They provide the context to you in which you would be finally positioning the understanding of the knowledge in any given domain. It could be engineering, it could be sciences, it could be medical sciences, it could be social sciences stuff, it could be humanities stuff. So, contextualizing the knowledge is what humanities social science courses help you obtain.